on Thursday, their council's ability to deliver services will be at the forefront of their minds. Do you accept that Conservative policies or austerity have caused pain and disruption to people's lives?
Well, I fully accept that from after 2010, because of the economic situation we inherited from Labour, we had to make some really tough decisions. Local government accounts for about a quarter of all public sector spend and therefore had to bear its side of that.
And those decisions have caused pain and disruption.
Well, actually, what we see across the country, particularly with Conservative-led councils, is actually delivering more and for less. They are cheaper in terms of council tax and they've been able to protect generally frontline services. But there have been tough decisions to make. But also because of the way we've been able to manage the economy, actually this year we're able to make 1.3 billion in real cash terms available to local authorities.
Bus services outside London have been cut by 48%. Libraries have been cut by 10%. Do you think public libraries are important?
I do actually, and Conservative councils around the country are not only managing to keep them open, some are opening libraries as well. But we also, I think sometimes we forget to look at local government finance in the round, and people talk about what they call the RSG, the settlement grant that comes from central government. But actually it's that wider pool. It's the fact that we've changed how they're financed and they now keep business rates in a way that they never did before. So the overall money for local government...
Bus services outside London have been cut by nearly half. Just think about the effect that has on the lives of people who depend on those services.
But also, as I say, we've got to look at the overall picture. So different local authorities do different things. Some of them actually, instead of using buses, have found more cost-effective ways of supplying transport using local taxi firms and things like that, which are more, in some rural areas, can be more efficient. But also, local government now has funding of over 200 billion a year. And this year, because of the changes we've been able to make, including retaining more of the business rates, as I say, they've got a real increase of about 1.3 billion pounds.
You say that Conservative councils are managing things well and managing to deliver services even in this tough climate. And yet when you hear from some of those Conservative leaders of councils, there's no doubt about how difficult they find all of this. Richard Cornelius, the Conservative leader of Barnet Council in North London, we are really, really short of money. There's no money. It's really difficult. Barry Lewis, the Conservative leader of Derbyshire County Council, saying that some councils are at a cliff edge. These are your people. This is what they're saying.
Well, as I say, it's one of the reasons why. And again, because of the way we have managed to develop and grow the economy over the last few years and managing the finances really properly and well for this country, we've been able this year to make sure the local government has access to, as I say, 1.3 billion more in money. But I know Richard and Barry, and they run...
How much more? It's less than 1%, according to the National Audit Office, in terms of a real terms increase in core spending power. So that may be the way it's going, but it's tiny compared to what's been lost.
Well, consistently, that core spending power has been able to increase. And actually, as I say, when you look at the statistics, people often talk about that grant from central government, but that is no longer the picture of how local government is financed. As I say, the big shift was when we started moving business rates retention back to local authorities.
Okay, so the council leaders, the Conservative council leaders who say there isn't enough money, we're short of money, we can barely manage, are they wrong?
Well, I think it differs around the country. As I say, there are some local authorities who are doing some fabulous work, making sure they're delivering more for less. There are other local authorities...
So Barnet and Derbyshire are wrong?
Well, Barnet is actually a very good example. Richard runs a very, very efficient council there. They have been
in very difficult circumstances, it sounds like it, where he says there's no money. Well, who wants to run a council with no money?
Well, as I said, Richard actually enjoys leading the council. He's a very good council leader. And let's remember, won control back from Labour in the local elections last year because of the good work and the good outline of what the Conservative council would do. But we're not denying the fact that we inherited such a bad economic situation back in 2010. We had to make some very, very tough decisions. Local government has had to take a good part of that because it does account for a quarter of all public spend.
Okay. Meanwhile, the European Parliament elections are just around the corner. When are you going to be launching your campaign for those?
Well, I'm absolutely focused at the moment on the local elections on the 2nd of May.
They'll be over on Thursday.
Well, yeah, but there's a few important days between now and Thursday for 8,500 councillors. We've got 96.5% of the country having Conservative representation. Labour have only managed 77.
All right, but they will be over within days. The other parties have launched their European elections.
Our first priority,
already.
I have to say as a government, our first priority is to not have to fight the European elections. I think we should be looking to do everything we can to respect that 2016 referendum. If and when we're at the point where we know we are definitely fighting those European elections, then we will take some decisions.
They've been legislated for already. So are you going to have a European Parliament election launch?
They have to be legislated because of the timetable. But there is still the possibility for Parliament to approve the withdrawal agreement such that we don't have to have those European elections.
Are you bringing it back then next week?
Well, as I say, that's a matter for the business managers. There is still time for Parliament to approve that agreement so that we don't fight those elections.
All right. Nevertheless, if you look at what is being said by your MPs, by your councillors, by your local authority, by your local Conservative associations as well, it's a picture um, of anger and disquiet about the leadership at the central level. Let's just look at what some of your MPs are saying. Some of them actually sound rather taken by the Brexit Party. Did you know that Lucy Allen has been talking about what fantastic candidates they have, and that at the European Parliament elections, usual party loyalties are likely to be eclipsed?
Well, that's not quite what Lucy said, but what I would say is I hope that between now and the local election, so the European election polling day on the 23rd of May, if we have to have those elections over the next few weeks, I hope that Conservative members, colleagues, volunteers, activists will come to want to not just vote for, but campaign for Conservatives to get elected, because ultimately Conservative representation is better than any other party. And as I say, I appreciate I'm coming back to the local elections. We see time and again Conservative local authorities are better. They deliver more for less. They do better on recycling. They fill more potholes. The same applies at every level.
Can you guarantee that in the European Parliament elections, every Conservative MP and councillor will vote Conservative?
Well, I hope every Conservative MP.
You can't guarantee it, though, can you?
I don't know what people do in the privacy of a ballot box, but what I do know is that Conservative members, Conservative MPs, and councillors know.
But to not be able to say that, yes, they will all vote Conservative.
My view is yes, I would want them all to vote Conservative, and I hope that they will, because that Conservative representation is better than any other party. And let's remember just one really important thing on this. In Parliament, we are the only party that is working and consistently has voted to leave the EU.
When nearly 800 of your councillors were questioned for a survey, 40% of them said that they would be voting for the Brexit Party. Nearly half of them said they'd be voting for Nigel Farage's new party.
Well, I've got 8,500 councillors up for election on Thursday, 2/3 of which we are defending. I want to make sure we get as many of them elected as possible, and our candidates, to give people good representation. And as I say, if we have to fight these European elections, I fully appreciate the huge frustration that people, particularly our members and councillors, have that we haven't left the EU yet, and we might have to fight these elections at all. But if we do, I hope they'll vote Conservative.
But there's an impact, isn't there, on the money you have available to fight these elections as well. Mick Davis, your chief executive and treasurer, has said that the party's been deserted by Leave and Remain voters, that he's unable to run a Conservative Party machine that's capable of winning elections.
That's actually not what our treasurer said. The 2018, for example, was a record peacetime fundraising year for our party. That's why we've been able to grow our campaigning machine. Very proud of the fact we've got more campaign managers now than we've had for a very long time, and they're doing that work locally, working with volunteers to work and develop and drive our local election and our general election campaigning machine. And that's why we had good results in the local elections last year.
So all these people who are expressing disquiet, they don't quite understand how good things really are.
Well, actually, organisationally, we've got more campaign managers than before. We've got volunteers working really hard because they're focused on those local elections this week that affect our lives every single day. And as I say, I don't deny the frustration people in our party have over where we are on Brexit. I share that frustration. I want to get this done so that we don't fight those European elections. Absolutely, she does. That's why she's working so focused on delivering on that referendum to make sure we don't fight those elections.
Maybe if she sets a date, she would be able to address some of that anger. A date for her departure.
Well, actually, I think her focus, quite rightly, and I think most of your viewers and the public want her time focused on delivering on the domestic agenda for our country, and also, as far as Brexit's concerned, focusing on getting that deal done.
Which we're already in a second extension to that whole process.
Well, that's where we need parliamentarians to look to make sure they deliver on what was in most of our manifestos, which is to leave the European Union.
Now